Okay, hi everybody. A little about me. I work for Seattle Public Utilities. I work in emergency management currently. I've worked 17 years here. The past 16, I've been the lead of the city's spill response program. Um, I come from my first job was at McDonald's. I've worked in a home repair warehouse. I've worked on an ambulance in Seattle. I've worked for the city of Redmond in Public Works in their wastewater department, but kind of did a lot of stuff there. My hobbies are, and I'm good at none of this, woodworking, a little bit of technology, understanding history, dad jokes, and trying to understand the human brain. All of these things that I do have led me to where I'm at in my leadership capabilities and my ability to make decisions. Um, so I wanted to kind of share those with you. Oh, the other thing I do is I am a part-time public information officer in South King County for some of the fire departments down there. So I'm going to kind of cram some of this stuff into this PowerPoint. The idea here is to kind of get you thinking of some alternatives, and then maybe open up some different ideas for you. And I know a lot of people have processes that they like to kind of be outlined, and this is kind of to help some of those folks. I'm not necessarily one of those folks, so I kind of did things backwards. I learned to do things, and then I outline how I did them. But neither one of those ways is super efficient, by the way. So anyway, I'll go through that. And I want you to understand that this presentation is specifically about making decisions during an emergency or when you're in like a field application. This isn't, hey, we have a project that's going to be done and we have 2 years to figure it out. This is more like I need to figure this out right now or within an hour. So anyway, take that for what it's worth. I'm sure there's things that apply from both of those type of decision making that apply here as well. So I really do believe that when you're making decisions as the supervisor, especially if you have employees that are making decisions, it starts at the beginning. And there are things that supervisors and management can do to help foster good decision making in the field or during emergencies. And I'm kind of going to go over those things. And by the way, where you see the things in red, those are things that probably aren't the best thing to do. Where blue is kind of my preferred method. And I have done the wrong thing, and that's how I've learned from this. But so when we're thinking this first column here, when we're thinking about um, one way that we prevent people having to make decisions too often and kind of streamline that process is we write a standard operating procedure. And typically when we write a standard operating procedure, it's following something that's gone wrong, and you can't help but think of that thing that's gone wrong and write a specific procedure to help prevent that from happening. However, it never fails that the next thing that comes up is um, is just a little bit different than the last thing, and the procedure doesn't work. You've written a broken procedure. Um, so, one of the things that I recommend instead of writing specific procedures is writing a standard operating guideline and understand the why. What's the ultimate goal with this procedure guideline? For example, um, sewage overflows. If you're going to write one for sewage overflows, the why would be something along the lines of protecting human health. Our goal here is to protect human health and the environment from contact with sewage, right? And then everything that person does in that guideline falls back to, am I aiming towards that goal, that end goal? Okay. And try to avoid things like, if X happens, do Y and Z. Now, I understand that there are regulatory requirements, and that's fine. But when you start saying, we automatically put signs out when the spill is over 100 gallons, and maybe your threshold is 0 gallons, but both of those have flaws because It could be 99 and it could be 2, right? So you kind of pigeonhole yourself, and you're taking away people's ability to make decisions, and think more towards the why. So think about that when you're writing your SOPs or SOGs. Um, Decisions and consequences. As a supervisor or as a lead, I've always told my folks that I will support any decision that they make. Um, what I won't support is indecision or decisions that are based off of laziness or not my job. The not my job statement, and what that means is like I didn't do anything because that's not my job. I understand that the goal might be, or that the specific thing that you're working on is not your job, but your job is to find the right person, and that is your solution to those. But anyway, I digress. So my folks know that even if the outcome is poor, but they made a thoughtful decision on and can articulate that, I got their back. Now, it might be a learning thing, but I will support them if anybody kind of comes after them or there's like, why did they do that kind of stuff. I'm there for them. Um, what you don't want to do is say, hey, Eric made that decision. I'll talk to him about it. That's not going to garner future decision making from Eric anymore, right? You just burned that ability. Employee support. The the easy thing to do is when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, how do I do this?" or who do I talk to about this? Or um, and the easy thing is to say like, I'll do it. Like I got it. Like or they come to you and say, "Hey, will you help me with this?" And you say, "I'll get it. I'll take care of it. I'll talk to finance and we'll get you your whatever, right?" Um, or yeah, I'll call the contractor and smooth things over, whatever the case is. The that's the easy way out. As a lead, I can handle it and be done with it in 30 seconds, 20 minutes or whatever, and move on with my day. But that person's going to continue to come to me with those problems, and I'm starting to build a relationship where they're dependent on me and not growing them as an employee. So the if time allows, and you think about it, I really recommend sending people to go on their own little discovery mission. You might point them in the right direction and say, "Hey, start here." And that's my process, because you're basically um, uh, solving problems in the future, and you're building a stronger employee. Um, Next thing down here is when do you want when employees call you with a question, they have an emergency that they're responding to or that they're working on, and they call you and say, "What do I do?" This is a super good opportunity to get people thinking about making their own decisions, or empower the decisions that they've already made but are uncomfortable with telling you. So I always lead with, you tell me what you think you'd like to do. What would you do? What are you thinking? Those kind of statements. Employee calls you and says, "Hey, I've got this spill and this is going on. What do I do?" My first thing back to them is, "What do you think you should do?" And you know what? I have found that they are 99 or 100% there already, or maybe they're maybe 92% of the way there. And I help them with that last little bit, help them consider a couple other things. But you are empowering that person to make decisions in the future when you're not picking up the phone. So look for those opportunities to support your employees overall. Moving over here to the next column, hiring goals. Um, I think what we do is when we're hiring folks, we tend to have an idea of what our people look like already. And I don't mean look like visually, but I mean their strengths, their education, and employment history. And what I'd like you to kind of think about doing is look at your team as a whole and look at where you might have uh, in the past couple years had some gaps, like for example, on the source control team, What we do is we have folks that are really good. We have Mike, who is really good at hazardous waste and disposal, and we have me, who's really good at kind of that spill response, incident management. And we have people who are really good at analytics. We have people who are really good at stormwater treatment. We have people who are really good at illicit discharge detection. And people start falling into these spots, and all there are experts in each kind of one of these things that we do. We have people that come from our work crews, our operations staff, that come into our work group and support us in an out of class opportunity, who know our stormwater system really well. They also know how to navigate kind of the work order process and getting stuff done with the city's equipment. And those are gaps that we have on our team, and we try and look at those as like, hey, our team has this gap and we're going to hire for that gap. So you might not be hiring somebody that has 10 years of experience in source control. They may have some experience, but they may be really good at something else, and that's a gap on your team. So think about that for a little bit, and try and grow your team, um, versus hiring kind of the stamp. And I'm not saying that any one of your employees is bad. I'm just saying that now they have to learn that thing. They're not an expert on it, and that's not another resource that you have on your team. So think about that when you're hiring folks. Um, Chain of command. I'm just going to say this. We're in the last column here. It's okay to not be in charge. If there are people that make less than you or are below you on an org chart, but they know more than you, it's perfectly okay to have them be in charge. When you look at the incident command system and you start looking at operations, there are times where, yeah, the director of your division is in charge ultimately, but the person that's calling most of the shots is the person who knows the most about that incident. So think about that and make sure that that is reflected in your standard operating guidelines. So I did spend a lot of time on that slide. There's a lot of information there. But I think it's important for things to think about, and we'll move faster through the rest of the presentation. So I'm going to talk about information and how we get that and what we do with it. There are two types of information: subjective information and objective information. Subjective information is information that you haven't verified, or seen or touched or smelled. And objective information is stuff that you have. Types of subjective information: anything that says the caller says, or a reporting party says, the neighbor says, the ERTS report says, it's the coworker's opinion, and GIS information that you haven't really kind of put eyes on. Just things along those nature. And I'm not saying that that's not valuable information. It's just information that you need to think about, where did that come from? Am I basing my response or my decision off of subjective information that, you know what, in 2 hours, when it's determined that that subjective information was false, and you based your whole response plan or your whole decision off of false information, it's going to make you look bad. So just take that for what it is. It might just be another response objective is to verify that information. And oftentimes that is it, because subjective information is what we have to go off of initially, right? And objective information is exactly the opposite. It's something that you or part of your team or your utility has verified. Okay. And information trickles in and it comes at you like fire hose. Typically, the fire hose of information is at the beginning of something, and the trickle of information is later on, during an incident or during a response, or during some sort of emergency. So I tell people to use information to make yourself smarter. When you enter any incident, you're kind of dumb about that information, and your whole goal is to become smarter about that incident. I teach hazmat class for the fire department, and this is where I start, is by telling people that they're dumb. which doesn't go too well usually, but they get it after a while that I'm right. By the way, I start as a dumb person on every response that I go to as well. I just have a little bit more knowledge of the things that I've seen before and kind of can lean on those as probabilities. It's still subjective, but those are some probabilities. Um, so with information that you get, you have to ask yourself, is this useful? Um, really, does somebody else need to know about this information? And what that means is this super important? And I don't want to be the last person holding this information because there's decisions um, outside of my purview that need to be made or may need to be made regarding this. And that kind of moves into the knowing who else needs to know, right? Um, Information often is like a puzzle. You're getting information and you're looking for those void spots, those the missing pieces to that you may need to go find. What information am I missing? Do I have enough information to make a decision now? Oftentimes well, I'm going to say that like 90% of the time, you have enough information to make a decision, but you're going to base that information on, you know, this, is it subjective? Is it objective? But you're still going to have enough to make some progress. Um, Also, I think one of the things that we do, and I'm moving to the next bullet point, is we start forming well, I shouldn't say we. I start forming my decisions based off of the first bit of information that I get. And I develop a theory. And as long as you're not getting stuck in your theory of like, you're not convincing yourself that, um, that, this is, this is, this isn't an oil spill. This is a hatch of some sort of invertebrate causing a thing that looks like sheen. And then you get there and it looks like sheen. You're still convinced that it's a phantom midge hatch. It's okay to do that. It's just, again, that's your own subjective information. And it may be based off of things that you've seen in the past. So ask yourself continually, does this information match the theory of what I got going? Um, and this is more, we'll get into this. Is it getting better or worse? Um, how does this information help me form smart objectives? And we'll talk about smart objectives here in a second, because you're taking information, you're turning it into, I need to do this. And then remember to, if you're gonna need things, to start asking for those early. And some of the resources take a while. If you're going to call a contractor for an oil spill, that's probably going to be one of the first calls you're going to need to make, because as soon as you determine that you need that Vector truck, because it can take them hours to get there, and you can do a lot while that you're waiting for them to show up, but they're not moving until you make that phone call. They don't even know you exist. So think about that stuff, and remember, resources take time, and make those decisions at the beginning, or as soon as possible, I should say. Um, so on the bottom here, I think of incidents or making decisions, especially during an emergency like this. And a lot of the work that we do is people have opinions about, right? We do environmental work, especially environmental emergencies. People have things, preconceived notions in their head about what things are and our capabilities are, and what can be done and what can't be done, what our enforcement ability is or isn't. And I've come to the conclusion that you cannot make everybody happy, and that's okay. So I've created this little I don't know I don't know, diagram, whatever. You can make everybody mad, though. I've been able to do that. So you can aim for your best case, be realistic, and understand that you have a most likely case, and that the worst case is making everyone mad. And along the way, along that path, um, there are failure points that you are there to mitigate and kind of think about. Um, so probabilities and factors, and this is all probabilities, right? Like the probability is we're gonna land here with the most likely scenario. Am I basing my opinion on biases and heuristics? That's what I was kind of talking about before. I start forming my own opinion of what's going on with this incident pretty early on, but I could be wrong, and it just being aware that that's the case is great. Is kind of all you can do. Um, we're always thinking about, all right, we have this gasoline that is spilled into this catch basin. What could happen and how likely is it to happen? I'm gonna steer away from the gasoline one because that's got a lot of ins and outs, as they say. So we have a 10-gallon oil spill into a catch basin from a leaking container. How likely is it going to get into the water? How likely has it left that catch basin? Um, uh, who and what will be affected? Well, that catch basin leads to an outfall, and that outfall is at a park. So the park could be affected. The environment can be affected at that outfall. What will people think? People will think it depends really a lot on our response. So, are we being aggressive on this one? Because we need to make sure that the people that are perceiving things, and these are the people who perceive things, the community, electeds, media, management, civic groups, regulators, partner agencies, we are thinking about what they're thinking about, right? Um, what does the NPDES require? And I think that a lot of people say, well, it's the NPDES only requires us to do this. And what I say to that is, I work for the community before I work for the NPDES permit, and I always try and think about what does the community expect? What would I expect if I were living in that neighborhood or I were the one who called in that complaint? Versus what does the minimum of the NPDES require? And by the way, if you start cutting corners on an NPDES permit because it doesn't say it, I promise you that the next version of the NPDES permit will force your hand and you'll have less options on how to deal with that stuff. So something to consider. Um, the other thing is, are my decisions helping me hit that why goal, right? And our standard operating guidelines, our why goal was to protect human health and the environment. Is my decision doing that? Is it working towards that why goal? And then the last thing, and I kind of touched on it, is what's the right thing to do? Um, the That's the most important thing. This isn't my job is never an answer. Um, what's the right thing to do? What would you expect? These are the folks that pay their utility bills or pay their taxes so that we have jobs. It's our job to serve that community, and that's why we're called public servants. Mhm. So smart objectives, this is part of incident command, and it helps people, and people kind of do this automatically. A SMART objective is a specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound objective. And um, what what I do to make sure that I'm meeting my SMART objectives or I'm creating objectives or things to do in a smart way is usually start things with this sentence: by blank, we need to blank so we can blank, or you need to, or they need to, whatever. So here's some examples. Within the first 30 minutes, develop a health and safety plan and distribute it to the responders and the safety officer. That's a SMART objective. Um, evaluate downstream impacts of the oil spill to the mouth of the creek by the end of the hour. And by 10 a.m., deploy boom to completely stop the flow of recoverable products north of the 90th Street Bridge. Now, this one, you may hand that objective to somebody and say, hey, I need you to do this. And they may say, you know what, we're not going to completely stop the flow of recoverable product um, because of the amount of boom we have or the technology or the flow rate of that river or whatever. So that's where there is kind of a balancing out here with the realistic. And typically when you start giving people assignments, things that aren't realistic, they'll let you know that it's not realistic. You know what? Decision paralysis really creates more decision paralysis. The longer you wait to start acting, the more potential for other problems to start creeping in, especially if you are just sitting there waiting for information. I need all of the information before I make a decision. That doesn't work because there is always something changing and you won't always have all of the information. And like I said, at the beginning of an incident, information is like a fire hose and it starts to trickle in as the incident goes along. So at no point will you have all of the information. So make sure that you're making decisions based off of what you have and you're making those good, smart decisions. So here's how I apply this in the field because there's a lot that just went on. And I always carry like a Write in the Rain notebook with me, a notepad. And I start kind of three sections. Section one is contact information. And that is anybody that comes and talks to me or calls me on the phone, I make sure that I get their information so I can contact them again. I have one place to go and get that. Now we have technology, um, our platforms in our database where we can kind of capture stuff as well. But this is the down and dirty, quick way, and I can get that into my database later um, at another point in time. Or, sometimes in lieu of this contact info page, I have people email me their contact info at the site. So I do have it all in one spot. Next is kind of my notes page, and that is a timeline. And it never looks this clean, by the way. And it's just how things are going and how things are progressing. And this really helps remember how I'm making decisions, where this decision's coming from, my report at the end. It helps other people that I'm working with, especially when I type this into a database. It helps them understand the flow of that incident. It's a good way to learn, especially if you're doing after actions. So yeah, that's what I do. But as I'm going through these notes, certain things are creating tasks, right, or objectives. And so I have another section where I'm writing those things down. And that way I can look at those and give them away or do them myself. And there's another part to that. When we start going into our objectives, um, there's a couple things that I look at is do I have the things? Do I have boom? Do I have equipment to do this? If I am sitting here with some high priority objectives and it's um, I've assigned um, I've assigned the objectives out with the resources that I have at the scene and I still have high priority objectives, it may be an indicator to me that I need more resources. I need more people. Um, so this is kind of where I put all of my objectives or my tasks and turn those into maybe objectives. But this is the way I do it is I create little boxes. Um, so I know that stuff is getting done. And like I said, as an indicator of the things that aren't getting done. So I know if I need to request more resources, personnel. A couple little tricks here. Um, when you're looking at your resources or your task boxes, what are the most important things on this page, and can I get them done? If not, why, and do I need to fix that? What can wait? What do you have to do now? Which ones are kind of insignificant and are kind of those wrap it up at the end type of things? And then when you're giving away a box to somebody, make sure that you're communicating them. This is a little trick that comes from the military and the fire service is this read bag feature. And we have some people on the spill response team that are super good at this, and it just saves a lot of headache. And in the video we'll watch, you'll hear it a couple. You'll hear the readbacks, but the way it works is you give the box to someone and you say, hey, I need you to take, like this is the example, I need you to take the extra boom to Tim and Gil so they can finish booming Ask them if they need anything else and report back to me. And the person replies, got it, boom to Tim and Gail, see if they need anything and report back to you. They kind of summarize it for you. Because if they said it wrong, they got it wrong, they might be gone for a while, or like report back to you, like, oh, report back to home. You're not going to see them again for the rest of the day. But yeah, you understand that they got it. They understand. They're telling you, what they understand, and there's a moment where you can just kind of verify that stuff. This works verbally, it works over the radio, it works over the cell phone, and it works over email. So something to think about. We're going to see that in play. We're going to see one person make a mistake and it gets caught during the readback, and it gets taken care of. During an incident, think about your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What's going well? We've already talked about that. Where do you need to improve? Are the resources adequate? Um, when you're thinking about resources and people, think about people that are better at you at certain things and having them do that. And that may be like, hey, somebody else is better at running this incident than I am. Can you run this incident? Um, or it could be like, hey, this person knows everything that I don't know about sampling, and I'm going to give all of that work away to them because I think that's going to work towards our Y goal. Are demands shifting? Are things starting to calm down? And you're looking at kind of the recovery part of an incident. So what are your goals? Are your demands shifting? What improvements can I make now? And then threats. We're always looking for those roadblocks, like in that little diagram, the smiley face diagram. Um, what are those things that are popping up that you can do something about, or might be outside of your control? And what can you do to um, get control or more information on those things outside of your control? And the things that are outside of your control are just outside of your control. You're not going to stop the tide. So we're going to watch this video. I'll pop in every once in a while and we can talk about it. I want you to watch for the readback that we just talked about. Look for flexibility. Are the objectives smart? Think about that when you hear somebody handing away their cards or their boxes. Watch for people considering that worst case scenario and then making resource requests. And then also, do you think that everybody that's responding to this incident understands the why and they're kind of being given their box, and they know what to do within that box? They are able to make their own decisions within their assignment. All right, here we go.
Engine 311, Engine 314, Engine 322, Engine 313, Ladder 311, 8322.
So this is an apartment fire in kind of the Renton
fire
area on a snowy
an
day.
apartment fire near Shattuck Avenue South and South 7th Street. Engine 311, Engine 314, Engine 322, Engine 313, Ladder 311, 8322, Battalion 311, Battalion 313 respond on fire 4. An apartment fire near Shattuck Avenue South and South 7th Street, fire 1 clear.
So what I want you to remember is we are not the fire department. We're not making life and death decisions per se, but we are making decisions. We are making decisions, and we want to see this type of decision making. So it helps us understand that, when we're responding to that 200-gallon sewage spill, that we have the ability to make decisions on that, right? And so let's look at this critical decision making and try and apply the parts that work for us. This isn't too bad for us. And I think we can learn a lot from this. There's the dials here on the screen. The upper left is information. How much information do we have? Then, oh boy, like if I memorize the dials, bear with me. We'll go through these pictures again. This is, again, my fault. Technical issue, not as bad as last time.
Ladder 311, 8322, Battalion 311, Battalion 313 respond on fire 4. An apartment fire near Shattuck Avenue South and South 7th Street, fire 1 clear. It's on fire 4 yet.
Yeah, Engine 311's on fire 4.
Engine 311, PD's en route. They can see flames from a ways away. Do you want me to upgrade to working fire?
Let's do that.
All right, let me go through the dials again. Information, the upper left-hand corner, dial. We don't have a lot yet. We don't have any incident control. We don't even really know what's going on. Resources, there's some resources that have been dispatched. You've heard that. Um, Potential resource needs. It sounds like the police, we just heard the police say, hey, we can see fire already from where we are. We're not there, but we see flames. So we have a high potential here in this category. And then you'll see these little flames pop up, and that's every time somebody's making a decision. The most recent decision was that the dispatcher said, hey, the police department can see flames already. Do you want us to add some more resources to this and say like, hey, this is probably really a fire based off of the subjective information that we have? And that person on that engine company said, yeah, let's do that.
Engine 311, A322, Battalion 311, Battalion 313, Engine 313, Engine 314, ladder 311, fire 4. We have multiple parties reporting flames from the top floor and the roof at this location with people screaming. PD says they can see flames from a ways away. I've upgraded to a working fire. You have engine 322, ladder 354, medic 5, and MSO1 also dispatched, not yet en route. Still reports of people still possibly inside the building, and I don't have a name of this complex. Possibly Olympic Terrace Apartments at 638 Moses Lane.
Battalion 311, copy. Strike a second alarm.
Copy.
So what just happened there is the dispatcher told the responding units, hey, we've heard from callers that there might be people, there's people screaming, there might be people still in the building. We haven't been able to confirm that they're not. The battalion chief, who's in charge of this incident and is on the way, has decided that, hey, there is a lot of potential here. But we don't necessarily have all the resources that we would need if there were people trapped. It's going to take a lot of work. So they automatically requested, or not automatically, he made a decision that, hey, resources take time. I'm not there to confirm or create objective information. I have subjective information only, but based off of that subjective information, the amount of time that resources take to arrive, I'm going to request a second alarm so I have those resources on the way. So that's kind of that decision process. It's a huge decision at this point to bring a bunch of fire trucks out of other neighborhoods during snowy conditions based off of subjective information. But they're working towards their why, and their why is like ours to protect human health, right? So they are there to save lives. And to properly save lives and do it in a safe manner, I'm going to need more resources. And that's how that decision was made based off of subjective information. Subjective information also becomes really strong when a bunch of people are saying the same thing, independent of one another. And that's happening in this case.
Fire 4, engine 311.
Engine 311.
We are on scene. We're at 7th, South 7th and Moses. We have a small, medium two-story apartment building. We have heavy fire from side Delta and through the roof. We'll be pulling a 2.5 for a quick hit. We're in the offensive strategy. We have our own water supply. 360 to follow.
Copy. At South 7th and Moses, a medium two-story apartment building, heavy fire from side Delta and through the roof, pulling a 2.5. You have your own water supply and doing a 360.
Fire 4, Battalion 311.
Battalion 311.
I'm on scene. Be establishing 7th command. Command post will be on the Alpha Delta corner. We have a working fire on the 2nd floor. I'll be doing a 360. Command post will be in Battalion 311.
Be establishing 7th command at the Alpha Delta corner, working fire on the 2nd floor, doing a.
So battalion chief is there. The first engine company is there. They're gathering objective information, specifically related to their standard operating guidelines, which in their guidelines it says, hey, you need to look at all sides of this building. That's the 360 that they're talking about. The other thing that the incident commander is doing that is important for us to do as well is saying, hey, I'm in charge. I'm the person who's ultimately making decisions on this incident, and this is where I'll be, and this is how you get a hold of me, because now my name is, I can't remember, Shattuck Command, I think he said. So we don't have to go through that process, but making sure that the person who's in charge is identified is crucial, because that way you don't have people off kind of doing their own thing. Everybody has a person that they're checking in on, and it might be 2 or 3 people on your incident, but it's important to make sure that, like, hey, I'm in charge of this one. Tim, will you do the paperwork and help us with the response? And Gail, will you help me here, take notes? And, anyway, whatever the case might be, make sure that you know who's in charge, and that's happening here.
360.
Command, engine 314 level 1. Last unit level 1. 314. This is the water supply, standby Team Alpha. This is the water supply, standby Team Alpha.
So as you can see, we have the cards here on the board, and they're getting assigned to folks. And really listen for that read back.
Command, engine 311, 360 is complete. There's no basement. We have heavy fire on site Charlie, floor 1 and floor 2. Copy.
So we're getting more information.
We got one patient on the Alpha side for the next in rig. Fire for dispatch and additional medic unit.
Richie.
So we're getting more information. Our incident control is still pretty low because we're still trying to form, or we pretty much have some standing job tasks here. We're just trying to get people to do them because our resources are on their way. As you can see, our resource needs are high. Our resources at the scene are pretty low, and our potential is still pretty high. And we just added a patient, so our workload is going to go up. And you heard somebody say, hey, we're probably going to need more medical support, and requested another medic unit based off of, like, hey, there's already one patient. It's snowy, it's icy, it takes resources a long time to get here. Let's add another medic unit, an additional medic unit, so we can do more medical care.
Command, medic 5, we're level 1. Medic 5, you got a patient around the Alpha Delta corner. 3C patient on the Alpha Delta corner. Command, engine 313 is level 1. 313, take a hand line off engine 311. Floor 2, fire attack, primary search, check for extension. 313.
I want to mention that this rescue thing up here is, I put that there as a direct rescue, like a known victim trapped, because are we doing that? Everybody that's getting assigned to fire attack is also doing search and rescue. So I probably could have done a better job making this graphic, but to redo it takes forever. Let's move on.
Battalion 313 on scene reporting command post. Division 313, command.
Defense command fire for you have your timer's at 10 minutes.
Copy, we're still offensive. Medic 5. Command. I'm next to Chief, what do you need? They're going to be medical. They got a second patient across the street. Copy, medical.
Hey, by the way, when the incident commander says you're medical, that means that anything medical goes under you. So basically, he's given away a body of work, because those people are proficient at that, and he can give anything that has to do with medical. A firefighter gets hurt, another patient comes out of that building, or a patient's found on the backside of that building. That is all your responsibility. You get those people to the hospital, you treat them, you request your own resources for the work that you're doing through me. But he's given away that body of work, so he doesn't have to make that decision. If you take incident command, which I recommend you all do, that's where we start talking about span of control and an expanding incident and a contracting incident, and using your ability to make those other resources or other columns on your incident command chart, your org chart.
311, level 1.
Ladder 311, I need you to put a spot on the Alpha Bravo corner and set up for master stream. Ladder 311, you're going to go around the block. Engine 311, command.
Command, this is engine 311.
I want you to open up the deck gun on the Alpha side.
Copy, deck gun on Alpha.
Engine 313, command.
Command, engine 313, go.
Yeah, we're going to change your assignment. We're going to open up a deck gun on the Alpha side. I want you to go to the Charlie side. There's a small one-story unit. Work on evacuation. Take a hand line. And assist with fire attack from the Charlie side.
Command, from engine 313, I copy that assignment. Right now, we are the only hand line on the fire on the Charlie side. We're knocking down a lot of fires this time.
Copy. Continue with that assignment.
A perfect example here of remaining flexible. The battalion chief was looking at the resources he had. He decided that, hey, this other building needs evacuations. I need to put some people on that. Decided to redirect engine 313 over here to evacuations. Said, hey, I want you to do this. During the readback, engine 313 said, I will gladly do that. However, we are putting out a lot of fire on the back side of the building that you probably can't see. And the battalion chief, not being a stubborn person, said, hey, keep doing that. You're being effective. I'll figure it out on my end. Thank you. So they didn't stick to their decision or his decision, which was probably a bad one at that point. So remember, remain flexible. Let's look at we're getting a lot more information. We know what's kind of going on at this incident. Our incident control is pretty low, but this is a fire. Incident control is measured on the amount of glow. Resources, we have a bit. We've got quite a few things. Remember, each one of these engines has 3 or 4 people on it. We do still need more, right? Not everything is happening. We have evacuations. We're going to need more water because they're going to put that ladder up on the other side of the building. I heard that. You might not have noticed that, but our potential is still fairly high. It doesn't look like we have this evacuation issue and people are over there, and we have made a lot of decisions, probably more than I've tracked here. But yeah, that's where we're at. Let's keep moving.
And engine 322, level 1.
Engine 322, you're going to work with Medic 5. We have a patient behind the command post at the tow yard.
Engine 320. Command A322, level 1.
Last unit, level 1.
A322.
Command engine 313, status change.
Go ahead.
Continuing with the assignment, quick hit on the Charlie side, exterior. The unit, the livable unit on the Charlie side, primary search complete, nothing found.
Copy. A322, command.
We missed the read back on that one. It's important for whenever you receive information to read back. And so it goes both ways. The incident commander reading back to that engine company that just completed a search of one of the units and said, hey, there's no victims here. It's important that you say, okay, you searched this unit and no victims. But there's a lot going on and we're skipping the read back for that one. I completely understand it. I'd probably do the same thing, but just kind of over analyzing sometimes for training purposes.
This A322.
Take a hand line on engine 311. Ready to make fire attack. Primary search check for extension on floor 1.
Receive hand line off engine 311. Fire attack, primary search on floor 1.
And by the way, when you hear people say that they're level one, it means that they're showing up. Like, hey, I'm pulling into the scene. I'm ready to work. What do you want me to do? Um, and that's where you see this. I could have done a better job. This is my first time animating something, so it's not perfect. I could have done a better job at that, but anyway, that's what this pocket is. It's resources that are sitting level one or waiting to get assigned to do something.
Command 8313, level 1.
8313.
Okay.
On deck Alpha.
So he's telling him just
Copy on deck Alpha.
go to the front of the building and
Engine
get ready
311,
to
command.
work.
Go ahead, command, engine 311.
If we shut down that master stream, are you going to be able to make an attack on the floor tube?
That's a negative. We can't get up to floor 2. We're on site Charlie right now with engine 313 hitting it from the outside. We're getting a good knock on it, but we can't make access yet.
Copy. Fire 4, command.
Okay.
5 AMBs.
Ricky.
7th Command, Battalion 352 is level 1.
Battalion 352, your safety.
Battalion 352, receive safety.
Again, just gave some work
313,
away.
report to medical. Medic 5, assist with patient care. I believe we're up to 4 patients now.
87 copies, report to medical. Command, engine 315, level 1.
Engine 315, take a hand line off engine 311 to the Bravo side. Assist with fire attack from the exterior.
315.
All units on the fire grounds. The Alpha side is the side engine 311 is on. I'm calling Alpha, the side that engine 311 is on.
Command engine 352, level 1.
Engine 352 on deck Alpha.
Copy on deck Alpha.
Engine 352, command.
Engine 352.
Change of assignment. You're going to supply ladder 311 on the Alpha Bravo corner. You come off Rainier, come down 7th. You're going to supply ladder 311.
352 receive. We're going to supply ladder 11.
Command, engine 312, level 1.
Engine 312, I'm going to make you Bravo division. You will have ladder 311, engine 352 working for you.
Receive Bravo division. Engine 311 and engine 52.
Ladder 311, engine 352.
Copy, ladder 311, engine 352.
Oh, so we're going to end with that. So what we saw there at the end there, let's see if I can fast forward out there. What we saw there was engine 312 got there. Said the battalion chief said, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to turn the backside of this building over to other people. Like I'm going to give all of that work away." Gave that work to engine 312 and decided to have engine 352 and ladder 311 report directly to him. And during that readback said, "Hey, I'm going to have these people working for you." Engine 312 misheard and did the readback, and the battalion chief caught it and said, "Nope, not engine 311, ladder 311." So that's how that readback works. It's critical in incidents like this when people are reporting to you and you got to ensure that they're being safe. So yeah, that's what happened right there. I thought that's kind of important to see. I'm going to stop now, but we've given away some bodies of work, the patient care and overall incident safety. We've given away all of the individual task work, right? And resources are starting to show up. By the way, nobody was nobody died from this incident, seriously injured that I'm aware of. And I just wanted to show you kind of this is the extreme of decision making, and they practice it all of the time. And I think it's a good example of kind of the things that we talked about leading into the video. So we saw that flexibility. We saw good readback. We know that these folks understand the why. There's a strong awareness of what resources were needed. We saw that at the beginning of the incident using only subjective information. We saw people giving away work. So people were reporting to them. Uh, Employees already know what to do because they've been trained on this, and that happens well before an emergency. And so that's kind of one of the last things is make sure that you're training on your standard operating guidelines. For people here at SPU, we have the ability to do tabletop or practical exercises through our emergency management division. That would be my job. So if they have an emergency plan, we can train on that and start to practice those abilities. Remember, make decisions, and if you're a leader, to foster leadership. That's your decision. Is at the beginning, with new employees, with existing employees, make sure that you're fostering that leadership, fostering growth. Don't overthink it and stop making decisions. Never do easy over right. That's my personal, like, I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. Although I'm going to not go to the gym again today. Anyway, make decisions based on what you would expect someone to do for you. And remember, remain flexible. And it's okay to make mistakes. I didn't put that down there. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. I'll help you out. If you need help thinking about some of this stuff, I'm here for you. I don't mind at all. All right. Thanks. Have a good day.